I am Doomsvince, and this is day 153 of Spawn Year.
This story arc is not about Overkill, or Overt War, or whatever he's called now. This arc is about inventing generic, brand new characters I'm never in scene with long enough to care about and see as anything but archetypes so Alan McElroy can put his personal stamp on the Spawn universe. And he already got a chance to reinvent that universe and make it better in the animated series. I don't know why he didn't get to stay on that past the first season, or why his writing here is so overblown and incompetent in comparison, but it sure doesn't feel like the same guy. Overkill is still a plot device, and a story I seem to be expected to want to read just because he's in it. He shows up in the last couple pages here as a weapon for this issue's throwaway mail-order protagonist to point in the direction of his enemies so he can get himself some good old-fashioned revenge. And if Overkill wasn't on the cover, and if the title of this one wasn't Overt Hell, I'd have wondered all issue if McElroy hadn't abandoned yet another ridiculous story in favor of a new one. I think I'm developing ADD reading this book. Yesterday, I mentioned some of those unprofessional technical errors the main title has been so overwrought with, and I said none was as insane as abandoning an arc midstream inside the same title. Well, how appropriate that this issue has an entire page-long glitch that puts all those other seemingly epic fails to shame. It's never good when you have deja vu reading a 22-page comic book. I read one overwritten page of narration boxes, turned the page, and soon realized I was reading all 8 of the same boxes in the same order, laid out nearly exactly the same in front of a different set of panels. And lest you wonder if this was some intentional artistic choice for the sake of emphasis, all of this narration is a first-person narrative flashback given to us by our central character, the incarcerated Pandemic, describing his profound sense of patriotism and his discovery as a U.S. Marine of a government-wide conspiracy that got him put away for life. Every box either describes events or his feelings about events. The boxes on the following page clearly expect we know the details about Pandemic's escape and his massacre the previous page gruesomely illustrates. Missing one box makes your hit mainstream best-selling comic book look pretty bad, and I'd be overreacting if I said that alone has ever ruined an entire Spawn comic. And frankly, this ain't exactly Batman Year 1 for the first 11 pages anyway. But essentially all the words are missing for an entire page of a 22-page issue. I'm not going to pretend to know jack about editing or printing comics, but how does that extreme of an oversight even happen on a supposedly professionally produced comic book? The main story here is overtly simple, because it only takes up the last 6 pages of the issue. Pandemic, his real name is John, is finally let out of prison because the government wants him to kill Overkill, and they think he'll be personally motivated because Overkill murdered his wife. Wait, the government hired a huge, conspicuous, hulking, overstated mob hitman to tie up some loose ends because this guy knows about a giant secret conspiracy? Alright. Anyway, Pandemic goes after Overkill, finds out Overkill wants to kill Spawn because he blames Spawn for making him kill his own brother, for some reason. So much for that unfeeling, inhuman machine motif. Guess I overthought that yesterday. So Pandemic tells Overkill Spawn is at the top secret base in Nevada. Yes, the one that houses Area 51. So he'll bust the place up. Pandemic doesn't blame Overkill for his wife's death because he was just the muscle. I'll give him this, he's got more brains than Al Simmons did with Chapel, but it begs the question as to what his plans were when he went after Overkill in the first place. He couldn't have known the guy would have a personal vendetta of his own he could exploit over the course of 2 whole pages. What a lucky break! These last 2 issues are confused about a basic tenet of storytelling. A story set in the past and a long flashback are not the same thing. Both issues spend most of their pages with a character telling his life story. It's all telling and no showing, in the narrative sense. There are pictures, of course, and in that sense, it's kind of showing. But I'm not living these moments with the protagonist. It's the difference between being a fly on the wall and the unsuspecting victim of a slide presentation of somebody's vacation. I might have been riveted by John's experiences if I'd been there with him, but this is all background for a 6-page story I'm not invested in. Not a real story in its own right. The political message of the US government touting up freedom while brainwashing its citizens is underdeveloped, overdone, and oversimplified. It comes off as a heavy-handed diatribe instead of satire or social commentary. Overall, this thing is a mess, and the silver lining is in the letters pages. This book got canceled in favor of Sam and Twitch and won't be around much longer. McFarlane says people quit buying the book because they didn't like its, quote, scattergun feel. I think it's because most of these stories were phoned in, if the careless page of wrong narration boxes is any indication. Signed, Captain Logan.